Welcome to Master Gardeners of Ottawa-Carleton Trial Talk Live. Today we welcome Master Gardener Adair Yukon to speak on us on garlic, a foolproof crop. Adair began to garden as a child at her grandmother's cottage near Kirkland Lake in northern Ontario. Her grandmother tried to grow asparagus and all kinds of other exotic vegetables for the era and in the most inhospitable climate, hounded by black flies. Not surprising, organic vegetable gardening is a hot interest these days. Adair adores English country gardens and perennial wilderness gardens, mimicking these unrefined and wild spaces wherever she lives. She brings energy and enthusiasm together with some innate feeling for design and color to her gardening. She loves gardening books, magazines, and best of all, visiting gardens for ideas. Her dream is to visit many of the National Trust gardens in the UK. In her talk, Garlic Foolproof Crop, she will cover history of garlic planting, harvesting, diseases, etc., and relate her personal good and bad experiences, why she thinks her crop failed this year, and what others might want to avoid doing. Questions can be typed in the chat and will be answered at the end of the talk. Let's welcome Adair.
Thank you very much, Cynthia, for that introduction. So this is me in about 2014 to 15 with our first crop of garlic, which, as you can see, was successful. In fact, all of the bulbs, all of the cloves I planted actually produced bulbs that year. So what I'd like to talk about today is how garlic is usually an easy, reliable crop. What is it? Its history, how and when to plant, hardneck versus softneck, how and when to harvest, drying and preserving and using, and the good and the bad, my experience. So what is garlic? Well, garlic is a bulbous perennial. It's a species of the genus Allium, and as you can see, close cousin of chives, leeks, onions, and shallots. It usually grows to about 8 inches to 24 inches in your garden. It's been revered, garlic, throughout the antiquity for cultural significance and healing potential. And it is considered to be very good for your heart and also anti-cancerous. You can see my large crop of garlic here in this first garden I think that was my first year. So there are lots of books and festivals and superstitions and myths about garlic. It's believed to deter vampires, and from our personal experience, we haven't had many vampires here, so I think it works. Cultivation started about 7,000 years ago on the Asian steppes. The species we eat today is no longer available in the wild. So why would we grow our own? Well, today you can buy a sack of 28 huge bulbs from Costco for $6.99. When you buy from farmers or from organic shops, you will spend $1, $2, I've seen more, per bulb of 4 to 6 cloves generally. So the reasons I grow my own is because in some places there are possible contaminants in the soils and water, the cost of transportation for the environment. And what I just discovered fairly recently, probably should have known before, is that they spray to extend the shelf life so that it won't start to green in your shelves, on the shelf or in your home. But most of all, it's the satisfaction of growing, harvesting, and eating your own garlic. So when and how and where and how to plant? Well, in our climatic zones, because I think there may be people from slightly different zones than just Ottawa here today. Let's say 4 to 6, we're zone 5. Plant now, October, 3 weeks before approximately the frost so that the roots can establish. And this isn't cast in stone, but it seems to work best. In well-drained, fertile soil with loamy texture and in full sun for biggest bulbs. So this is my garden in the fall with the beautiful little forest in the background. You separate your cloves, leaving on the outer paper, and plant 2 to 3 inches deep. Of course, it depends on the size of the bulbs. You try for the cloves. You try for the biggest cloves, and you plant them with the rooting or at the bottom and the little pointy part at the top. I mean, that's pretty self-evident, but not always. Cover loosely with soil and layer on compost. So why do we plant in the fall? Because of what's called vernalization, cold exposure before and after sowing. It's required for the hardneck varieties, which are the varieties we use here generally. The ideal conditions for garlic are an exposure for a period of 6 to 12 weeks over the winter. In warmer, and that's what happens here, of course. In warmer climates, 6 to 12 weeks of refrigeration before planting is required. In the spring, same garden, sowing is not recommended. However, if you have to, see if you find a little window in March where you can actually dig and plant your garlic. The reason you don't plant in the spring is the formation of the bulbs halts during the hot temperatures, and they need 200 odd days to come to maturity. So they need a long time. This is not a garlic eater, but he was in our garden and I thought he was so wonderful. But what does eat garlic, or at least it seems to disturb our garlic, move them around, dig them up, are the squirrels. And so we cover it in chicken wire. We put chicken wire over, and then we put our mulch down on top, or we put mulch and then chicken wire, and we leave it that way all winter. So I should have said compost, because mulch is another thing that you are supposed to do or can do. It protects against cold and drying winds. I don't think I've done enough mulching. This is not my garden, but I took the picture. Best is a thick 6-inch layer of dry mulch, and obviously you can use different kinds. These seem to be leaves, clean straw, evergreen boughs, fern fronds. In the summer, this mulch helps to retain the moisture, keep the soil temperatures cool, which is really important for garlic, and keep down the weeds. So this is the spring, same garden, first year. The bulbs are one of the first to start showing. You remove your chicken wire. I don't think I even used chicken wire that first year. And Eva last week had asked about fertilizing garlic, and I did do some research, and in fact, people do fertilize garlic with an all-purpose fertilizer of nitrogen, phosphorus, potassium, NPK of 555 or 10-10-10. I don't do that because I have enough compost that we make in the forest from our own refuse, and then we also have some chicken manure and other things that I have put on to try more naturally to enhance my soils. In the mid-season, you have scapes formed, which are the flower stalks, and then large umbel flowers form. Now, since I take off my scapes, I haven't got a picture of umbel flowers for you, I'm afraid. The softneck varieties sometimes have scapes, but not very often. Now, this is the garden in a couple of different years, with the garlic here in the first year, there the second year, and then I move it. I have about 6 quadrants, and I just move things around to try to make sure my tomatoes are in different places as well. The reason for this is for disease control, if you should get diseases. So here you have a choice. Again, this is somebody else's lovely garden. You have a choice between cutting your scapes or letting them become flowers for pollinators and seeds. And some people do grow from seed. I tend to take off the scapes because then the power goes, or the strength goes back into the bulbs, and the scapes are fabulous for eating. So this is what we do. We take them off, usually in June, they're forming. And of course, as many of you know, they're super good in salads and sauces. They have a mild garlic flavor. They last a long, long time in the fridge. And then the bulbs themselves are harvested when approximately 3 of the leaves have yellowed. And that tends to be towards the end of July, August. The festivals, the garlic festivals here tend to be in August. Now, hardneck versus softneck. And these with the scapes are the hardneck that stand up tall. There are many varieties of each hardneck and softneck. Hardneck is what we tend to grow here. I, in my first years, bought from an organic farmer what are called porcelain. I tried music and Georgian fire and German white. I think I had one of the purple glazer or the purple stripes varietal. Softnecks are better suited to warm climates, and there are several species there as well, subspecies. There's silver skins and artichokes. Artichokes are the best for our climate, and there are very many varieties, but California early, late, and Incelium red. So where do you buy these? Well, you can buy them from Burpee or other seed companies. Home Depot often has them. Farmers markets, Perth Garlic Festival or other garlic festivals. And of course, the supermarket, if you want to take a risk. So companion planting. Garlic has a large number of friends. It is a wonderful, wonderful plant in your garden because it deters all these things: ants, aphids, deer, rabbits, Japanese beetles, onion flies, everything, almost everything. It's because of its high sulfur content. So it's a natural pest and fungus repellent. And almost everything in your garden benefits from. And one of our colleagues was just saying that she planted carrots after garlic, and they've done really well. So everything from beets to cruciferous to dill, eggplant, fruit trees. This year, this is a previous year, but I have a couple of fruit trees now at the end, and the garlic was there, and they did well. Pear trees. Now, plants which don't benefit are asparagus, beans, and peas, and they are stunted. Now, I had beans last year not far from the garlic, and then this year they're much farther away, and they're 3 to 5 times more productive. Now, whether that's that I put them away from the garlic or I did something else, or it's a better year for beans, I don't know. But quite frankly, I think I will always try to keep, and I don't grow asparagus, but keep my beans and peas away from my garlic. So drying and preserving. So what you do is you take them out when those leaves have turned yellow, and you let them dry in the sun outside for a few days. Then you tie them. I tie them in groups of 10, hang them in a cool, dry place until they're dried. You can braid them. The soft necks are better for braiding than the hard necks, but I'm told you can do hard neck too. Or you do what I do, and you cut them off with an inch or so left of the white green, maybe a couple of inches, and you just keep them in a cool, dark place and enjoy them all winter. And if you're lucky, you'll have some in the fall even to plant again. So from my first plantings until 2021, I had very successful garlic. But this year, it has not been a success. And I was looking at what happened. So I did have difficulty finding the bulbs I wanted during COVID lockdowns. So I tried a supermarket variety. I had some of my own too, but I did supermarket as well. I think these were my own and those were supermarket, and these are better for sure. I planted in the same location. By the way, these were Turkish. They were 30 cents a bulb, and they were probably soft neck. So I planted in the same location for a second year because I amended the soil, thinking, okay, it's going to be new soil, it'll be fine. I added what I thought was going to make a better loamy, sandy loamy, and I'd read that sand was better and so on and so on. It turned out it wasn't. There was too much clay. It compacted, and I also disturbed the mycelium by digging down. There's a whole theory that I think is becoming much better known that we shouldn't till our gardens. We should just leave the networks of mycelium, which help all the plants and all the trees, and not disturb them. I absolutely disturbed mine in this garden. And I didn't mulch, and I probably should have. At first, we had too much water, and then we had a drought. And my scapes started to form way too early, and then the bulbs the greenery started to turn yellow too early as well. So I had to actually harvest early. Now, I don't think I had diseases, but it's possible. Because the bulbs were malformed, some of them were very malformed. So garlic deters pests, but there are diseases it can get. And the three main ones are basil rot, downy mildew, and white rot. If I had one, it was the basil rot because of the yellowing dieback of the leaves. I didn't see white growth around the bulb. I certainly didn't see white spots and buzz or fluffy, fuzzy fungal growth, which is white rot. But these are things that can happen and why you should rotate your crop if you can, although many people don't. My harvest escapes was okay, but very small this year. And my bulbs were very poorly formed. The leaves had yellowed early. They were very small bulbs. And I had to harvest in June. I had over 150 cloves, which was quite a few, but you can see they're all so small. And some of them haven't made it even until now. So I'm not, it's been a disastrous crop, but who cares? You try again. Anyway, while this was happening to my garden, my friends and neighbors were having wonderful crops of garlic this year. Their scapes were just coming. Their scapes were really just coming when I had already had to harvest. So we'll try again. We'll try again and we'll put it in a different place, maybe even in little clumps. They suggest you can even put it around your other vegetables in small clumps. So I might try that. And then I guess if anybody has questions. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Adair. That was excellent. We do have a question for you. How do you monitor for leek moth?
I've only planted leeks for the first time this year. I guess you would look at your, this is my suggestion. I'm not an expert in this at all, but I would look at my leaves and make sure that they're looking healthy. If I see them not looking healthy, I would start to wonder what is the reason for that. I still have leeks in the garden here that I bought towards the end of the summer, so they're just coming along now. The answer is I'm not quite sure. Judith, you're an expert on these things. Could you add something?
Well, actually, leek moth is something that happens that affects almost all of our allium crops.
Mm-hmm.
It's a nasty little thing. That really, as oh look, Tula has waded in too, and she's been growing her garlic and had leek moths in the last couple of years.
Wow.
I've found a lot of people that have been growing garlic. After a while, the leek moths start to show up, just like the Japanese beetles, unfortunately.
Mm.
And I think what is best is to clean the area and to really pay attention to rotating your crops. That's what I've done, and I've had no issue with them. Had them 1 year and then I've never had them again.
That makes good sense. Not bleach. Don't put bleach on your garden.
No, don't put bleach on your garden. Definitely don't put bleach on your garden.
Thanks for answering that. I guess because I have rotated, I actually haven't encountered those yet.
It's very important to really, almost every vegetable in the garden, you want to clean all around the soil. That's probably the best defense. Now, you have another question here from Francine. She said, I bought softneck this year. Do I plant now? I didn't realize that they do better in warmer climates.
My suggestion would be yes, plant now, and definitely put a really good layer of mulch. It says in some of my research, over 6 inches is very helpful, and that will help to protect it from the cold and the winds and so on during the winter. That would be my suggestion, because it's much riskier to plant in the spring, if you can even plant, depending on our snow and cold and frost, and then you need a very long period to grow garlic, so you might not even get the harvest. I mean, I know some places where the harvests come in August, so you know it's probably better to take the risk and plant it now. Yeah.
So what would you suggest? We had a terrible drought. How would you have handled the drought issue? Is that all for mulching? Is that what we need to do? Or should you water your garlic regularly?
Yeah, that's a very good question. Garlic doesn't like to be too wet. And that, I think, is what went wrong with mine in the beginning. We had too much water, but then I have a watering system, and I try to not water the garlic as much as other plants that need more water, but obviously in a garden like this, you're getting it. So I think you've already given the answer, Judith, is that it's mulching that is going to keep the soil and keep the moisture in the soil so that you don't have to water as much. And really, I mean, when I said 6 to 12 inches, which is an awful lot, but it seems like they really like that.
Interesting. So you're suggesting actually more of a low down watering rather than from above, if at all possible?
If at all possible, yes. My system is from above, but everybody says that the better is from below, and to be able to control your water flow so that you don't actually water, like try to know which crops don't like as much water. And I mean, they like a regular, and they don't want to be dried out, but they are not as needy of water as, let's say, your tomatoes. Yeah. They aren't. And my tomatoes this year were near my garlic. So then you end up with this conflict of, you know, having to water. And the way I watered, I tried to water from below with hoses as well. But yeah, I think I overwatered my garlic, and there wasn't any mulch.
What about, does anything affect the taste of the garlic that you plant? Suppose you're expecting a fairly mild garlic and it turns out to be very, very strong. Is there anything that we do that can affect the taste of our garlic?
My understanding is it comes from the varietal. And so they should indicate what the taste is going to be, whether it's mild or not mild, very, very sharp. I haven't, well, I love all garlic, but sometimes you can actually, well, first of all, when you cook it, and that's another thing that I've read about that I think is quite interesting. To have the benefit of garlic, you're supposed to cut it and let it sit 10 minutes so that the inside and the outside of the garlic actually touch. It softens the taste, but it's actually to give you all of the nutrient benefits before you cook it. I've also preserved garlic in vinegar, and that works well, or vinegar and oil, and that takes away some of the sharp flavor. But essentially, my understanding is it's coming from the particular bulb.
What would you say is your most favorite garlic?
Well, I guess from the experience I've had, the music varietal was very nice, and it produced large enough cloves that they were easy to use in your cooking, and not a whole bunch of tiny ones. But also then when you plant the next year, if you can save some, they're big enough and they produce big bulbs. I've tried the smaller ones thinking, oh, they'll grow just as big as the bigger ones over time. It doesn't seem to be the case. They say plant your biggest cloves, and I think you should plant your biggest cloves. Music was, I thought very successful. I got it from a farmer near a cottage we had out near between Perth and Westport, and she was an organic farmer, and she had carefully grown this garlic. I paid over $2 a clove, a bulb for each one, but it was good. It was a good one.
Oh, have you ever grown, I think it's called elephant garlic?
That's interesting. I was reading about it. I haven't. I love elephant garlic, but elephant garlic is actually a leek. It's a form of
Oh.
leek. I was just
Not
reading.
know that.
Yeah, I didn't know either. I think I've got that right. It's a leek, and and it's a mild tasting. You see them in the marketplace, these huge,
Mhm.
gorgeous things, but it's not actually a garlic.
Looks like a garlic.
Yeah, it looks like it. It acts like it. It tastes like it. But I think I've got it right. I had
Yeah.
written it down that it's a leek.
That actually makes sense because it's so mild
Mm-hmm,
Yeah.
mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
and huge. When you're harvesting your garlic, do you do anything to the soil once you've pulled everything out?
Well, as I said, soils are best left undisturbed. But of course, to get the garlic out, you need a pitchfork. Generally speaking, you use a pitchfork and lift the bulbs so that you don't rip off the tops if it happens to be that they're dry. Then, because I'm then doing some rotation, I tend to just leave that soil and maybe, and of course in the fall I would add some compost, and in the spring sometimes I add compost, but just layering it on top depending on what I'm planning to do the next year in that spot. And there was a talk given earlier or by another master gardener about rotating rotation, because garlic can be harvested end of July, early August, end of July. So you can put another crop in. You can put beets in, or you can put carrots or something else that will come up in the fall. And so I haven't done enough of that. And I was thinking I would try to do that more this year.
That makes a lot of sense. Sort of succession planting.
Succession. Yes, that's the word for it. Succession planting. And well, Nancy McDonald was saying that it was very successful with her carrots this year. So I know that dill is one of the ones that absolutely adores garlic. And even though I don't plant dill anymore, the seeds are in the garden and they just love coming up near the garlic.
Well, that'd be a lovely smell.
Yes.
Well, now, do we have any more questions from anyone? Because if we have time for one last question, then I think it's back to Cynthia.
Yes, it is. And thank you, Adair, for the presentation and talking to us today on garlic foolproofing crop. What we learned was what is garlic, history of garlic, growing our own, how and when to plant, vernalization, fertilization, hardneck versus softneck, maturity, drying and preserving. And especially we learned what went wrong. We learned about compacted soil doesn't do well with garlic. We learned that we shouldn't till our crop, and she didn't mulch. So we did learn a few things from Adair. So please join us next week for Trial Talk Live at 12:30 sharp, October 26th. Our topic will be Winter Container with Master Gardener Catherine Disley. And a big treat for November 2nd, we have Tips in QA with a panel of Master Gardeners experts. Thank you and for joining us.